the chair of death. In 1702, a convicted murderer, named Thomas Busby, was about to be hanged for his crimes. His last request was to have his final meal served at his favorite pub in Thirsk, England. He finished his meal, stood up, and said, "May sudden death come to anyone who dare sit in my chair." The chair remained in the pub for centuries, and patrons would often dare one another to sit in the cursed seat. 4 people reportedly died shortly after sitting in this 200-year-old chair of death, now in Philadelphia. In 1967, 2 Royal Air Force pilots sat in the chair, only to crash their truck into a tree just after they left. In 1970, a mason tested his fate in the hot seat, only to die that same afternoon by falling into a hole at his job site. A year after that, a roofer who sat in it died after the roof he was working on collapsed. When the pub's cleaning lady tripped and fell into the chair, she died shortly afterwards from a brain tumor. Several paranormal investigators believe a female ghost haunts the chair, and George's nickname for the spirit found in this particular room would back that claim up: Spectral Amelia. It is said that, whenever Amelia is present, a bloom descends upon the room, and that anyone who is brave enough to sit in the chair, when the spirit is in attendance, will die suddenly. To this day 4 people have pooh-poohed the claim and brazenly sat in the chair. Those very same people perished. The Haunted Mirror. Myrtle's plantation can be found on the outskirts of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Down the years, this 200-year-old, 10-acre plantation has served as a family home, but these days it's run as a bed and breakfast, and is a hot spot for paranormal tourists. Every night at 3 a.m. a total of 15 ghosts come out to play. 4 of these ghosts come from one tragic tale, that of the Woodruff family and a young slave named Chloe. Screaming Skull of Burton Agnes Hall. The skull at Burton Agnes Hall is another famous screaming skull, although its exact whereabouts in the hall is unknown. It is thought to reside behind one of the walls, having been bricked up and forgotten about years before. Tradition relates that 3 sisters built the hall in the reign of Queen Elizabeth before they managed to complete the building. The youngest of the 3 sisters was attacked and mortally wounded by a cutthroat. While walking in the park, she quickly fell into a fever and died. Before she passed away, her sisters promised her that they would bring her head back into the hall, so that she could see the completed structure. Her 2 sisters did not fulfill their promise too. And still the spirit of Anne was also thought to haunt the hall, and was known as Ode Nance. She is still said to appear on the anniversary of her death. The Possessed Bunk Beds. The case of the haunted bunk beds was so famous. In February 1987 in Horicon, Wisconsin, Alan and Debbie Dahlman brought home a bunk bed from a second-hand shop, and like you do, they put it down in the basement. In May later that year, the couple moved the beds upstairs. And 9 months of hell ensued, and not just a bad back from shoddy bed building. From the very first night the bunks were in their new room, things quickly escalated from wacky to just plain creepy. First of all, the children of the house became ill. Then the radio would jump from station to station without anyone touching it, and to cap things off, the first 2 children to sleep in the bed said they saw a witch. The Dahlmans got a pastor in and things cooled for a while. But when Alan Dahlman returned home a few weeks after Christmas in 1988, he heard a voice telling him to come here. He followed it to the garage, where he witnessed a blazing fire. Rushing to grab an extinguisher, Alan returned to the scene only to see the fire had vanished. A few more creepy circumstances later, and the Dahlmans had had enough. They burned the bunk beds. And would you believe it, just like that, the paranormal activity ended.